Recording started.
All right, guys, welcome to this week's May Checks It discussion group call for tactical sovereignty. I believe this is November 14th. Interesting day. It's the date that my certificate of live birth was registered. Anyway, want to go over just some brief things this evening, talking about kind of like research and things that we find, things that we see when we're studying stuff either online or what we're hearing it from people, being told various things. Like I've said in the past, there's three different levels to this. There's info, there's knowledge, and then there's intelligence. And there's tons of crappy info that floats around out there. It's amazing to me some of the things people will believe. And what I find even more amazing is the things that people won't believe. Not even a fact of not believing it, but that they won't even entertain it, because I guess it's one of their sacred cows or something like that. So, you know, it makes me think about a number of things, especially things going on right now, such as the educational system. 10 years from now, it may be just very widely accepted that two plus two could be five. And you'd be a crazy man to ever try and correct anybody on it. You think that's nuts? I mean, there's things going on today that people believe they've been told, they were taught it, they've held on to it all their life, and to them, that's just as sacred as what somebody 10 years from now might think about two plus two. And I really don't understand why people have a problem with this. So many times you see people that uh, teach on various topics, things that they've discovered, things that totally go against the grain of the mainstream line of thought. But though then they're presented with the idea that maybe a certain illness um, might not be legitimate. And for some reason, all of a sudden, they want to hold on to that science and still believe in that illness, for instance. And sometimes those people eventually pass away, supposedly from that illness. I mean, it's just a fascinating world that we live in. There's so many things that have happened through our life that a lot of us know very well, were bogus situations. And the people that comprehend that blow my mind when there's other things that are presented to them with very, very good evidence behind it that they immediately start ridiculing, just like the rest of the sheep are out there ridiculing different things that they're told. And you look at different situations. I think a lot of people know about what happened with the Titanic and its sister ship Olympic. If not, it's something I would recommend people looking into. Um, People really think that it took like supposedly 6,000 years for the engine to be developed. It wasn't until like, you know, 1850s and 1900 before that ever happened. What happened all that other time? And I think people need to really start questioning time. In 1620, a lot of people learn in school about the pilgrims coming here. They believe that the pilgrims arrived and that was the start of the country. And, but when you're reading about that event, you'll find that they're actually destined to go to Jamestown. And it's like, wait a minute, how was Jamestown their destination if they were the ones that were the first settlers here? Because this area had been settled long, long before. Actually, Jamestown had been set up 13 years prior to the Pilgrims ever even coming. You can even look at slavery, for instance. And a lot of people think that that started to get really popular in the early 1900s. 1820s, 1830s, culminating supposedly with the Civil War. Well, if you go and research it, the slave trade in the Americas started much, much earlier. It started around 1550 here in this territory we know of the United States of America. Around 1550 is when it started. And it started, they call it the Triangle of Trade. Okay. Um, the Gulf of Tonkin. A lot of people are fully aware of that being kind of misinformation now over time. And it was Jim Morrison's dad, George Morrison, that was captaining the ship, the USS Maddox. People are very easily set in realizing that so many of these things were totally bogus the way they were presented to us. But though there's things they'll hold near and dear to today. So many are holding so close to this divide, this division between Republican and Democrat. When if you go back just about exactly 100 years ago in New York City, Montague Norman, he was a governor for the Bank of England. He gave a speech in New York City saying how the party system was developed in a way to keep the people divided, to keep them arguing over issues of no consequence. That way, the people in the government could go ahead and continue on doing what they're doing as long as they've got the peasants arguing about other things. And the people behind this deception and even religion, man-made religion, one of the other hugest deceptions that's out there. And it's interesting to me that you listen to different people pointing out some of these topics, and you can kind of find pretty quickly where they are really at in their research. Are they really digging themselves? Are they really checking things out themselves? Or are they just doing what we're accusing the sheep of doing, of following a freaking narrative, following a storyline? Uh, Most of the time, you'll hear people say that these people right here are the ones guilty of this stuff. Not going to say the name, but you can read it. When really it's not them at all. If you really want to look at who it is, it's these guys here. These guys are the ones really, really at the heart of everything. And these deceptions go right at the heart of a lot of people's even fast held beliefs. Um, Look at the different denominations and churches that people follow. And if you say anything against what, the narrative of that church is, oh, Lord forbid. You know, it amazes me that there's a creator who could supposedly snap his fingers and all of this exists at once, poof. Or step by step over 7 days, I guess, or 6 days rather. But though, because you sinned, then he has to somehow come in the flesh and bleed and be sacrificed in order for that sin to be forgiven. So something physical, I guess, like a sacrifice has to happen because something spiritual happened. Like I said, from the creator who, at a snap of the fingers, created everything. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But that's just something I kind of ponder in my mind. When you look, for instance, at the man-made religions, and they talk a lot about the church, and there's like the rescue of the church. And so many things are designed to keep us looking on the outside, looking in the sky, waiting for something to happen, such as, we can't let socialism creep into this country. We got to keep out the communists. I'm sorry, if you look up the definition of socialism, it is the exact definition of the system that we are currently in. And you look at movements like Q. Oh, just sit back, enjoy the show. You know, so many of these things that are propagated to people are telling you not to do anything yourself, not to look on the inside, not to do any inner work, that everything is out there somewhere or something that's coming. You know what I mean? And I was saying they talk a lot about the church, and that's something that I find really interesting in scriptures because um, the term that's used for the church is used in the scripture 114 times. It's there. And actually, if you go to the Hebrew for it, it's kahea, a kahea. It's a congregation, it's an assembly. There's nothing about that word whatsoever that has anything to do with the word church. Church was something that was added really by the Greeks. That comes from the word kirk or kurt or kirk, or you can even look at the word circle. Okay. They all come from the origin of that same word. That's where church was brought in from. And who created that authorized version anyway? It was the king, King James supposedly authorized version. And that's where the word church was really being pushed and promoted the most. Well, when you stop and think about what was really going on and look at it from a political perspective, um, the church, is the chosen of the creator. Well, looking at it politically, who would at that time have been head of the church? It would have been the king. So it was done only really just to solidify his political position with the people. And I think people need to look a little bit closer in at the things that they are given. Like I said, go to the original roots, go to the original Hebrew roots of so many of the words that you see. And you'll find that they've been just kind of tweaked or twisted just a little bit or just enough to kind of throw people off. But I suppose the main message really I have this evening is, just we need to realize that if you're going to start researching and trying to learn things, the first thing that you have to do is you have to throw away every predisposed idea you had. You have to automatically realize in your mind that everything you've been taught, everything you think you know, is very likely not the case. It's very likely not true. If you don't do that, you're not going to be able to research. You're not going to have your eyes open enough to be able to see things that are even in plain sight. Um, Even if you want to get into the shape of the earth, I guess, if you want. And what we've been promoted the past 4 years, talking about this CEO for the great company to be named United States of America, as the head of the Supreme Court once said, and Trump, and how he was the great, 45th president of the United States of America. So many of these things are right in front of our face. And I don't know why people don't see it. These lies that are pushed to us. Trump was not the 45th president of the United States. 45 men have not been president of the United States since the Constitution was written in 1789, or adopted in 1789, rather. There's only been 44. Well, there's not been 45. And so president number 45 actually today is Joe Biden. It wasn't Trump. The reason for this is because Grover Cleveland held office twice, not as an incumbent, but as a separate candidate twice. He was the 22nd and the 24th president of the USA. And between him was Benjamin Harrison, who was there from 1889 to 1893, I believe. So Harrison was the 23rd president. So you see there's only been 45 people as president. There's no way that today Biden could even be the 46th president because there hasn't been 46 men to hold that office. And there's so many little things like that that they tweak right in front of us, and people don't catch it, and it kind of surprises me. But anyway, that was just a little rant I wanted to go over this evening because it frustrates me with some of the things that I see and hear people talk about. And it's like, wow, people will believe some of the most extreme things in the world. And then even a basic lie is put in front of their face. But it's such a near and dear held sacred cow they've believed ever since probably they could walk that they don't want to take a second glance at it. If you're not willing to take a second glance at things, I'm not sure how much of a researcher you really are. Well, if anybody had anything to say, I want to open up lines for everybody. So if you want to mute yourself, you can keep yourself muted. Help avoid background noise. That's always good. Anyway, so there you all are. How are y'all doing?
Hey, Brian.
What's going on?
This is Seth Leo. How are you?
Good, good. And Seth Leo wins the gold star in class tonight because he guessed my background.
Well, you know, it's funny. It's funny that you mention everything that you mentioned because that's the first thing I saw, and it came to light to me. Obviously, we know what November represents as well, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I listen to what you're saying, and I totally agree, 100%. But I'm torn because this knowledge and this journey is not for everyone. In the age of information, this technology has allowed a lot of information. The problem with that is people take it and run with it without actually doing the further research, as you stated. But the real ones who are attuned to what they believe the truth is are going to actually go down and look at it in a deeper fashion to find out what the truth is. So with that being said, there is a lot of information out there. I think it was done intentionally. Everything in this reality is done intentionally. You know, one of the things I'm starting to think about is what we're going through right now. And I think you have mentioned it in one of your podcasts before.
Try not to.
You talked about the Black Plague.
Let it out your mouth.
You talked about, you know, the different times that went on, and we're facing that time now. And so there's a shift that's happening.
Like, what are you supposed to do in a fart tone? Just hold it in.
All right, it's a lot of background noise.
Yeah, hold on just a second.
Okay.
Give me just a second here. And I'll take care of the background noise.
Okay.
There we go. Background noise is all gone.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I believe that there's a shift going on. Obviously, there has to be a shift. We've been living in this reality that we've been living in for hundreds of years, right? So just like we talked about the Black Plague, we talked about the Spanish flu, we talked about all these different things that came in history. There was that shift or a change that came along with it. I don't know what it is, to be honest with you, but it did lead me down a path where I'm starting to dig and really look at things deeply. I've always been curious as a kid and try to understand things from a different light. I've always been curious about everything, but now this has kind of sort of driven me more. But I understand because it takes a lot of energy to try. And I appreciate, like I said, I've said this to you on numerous occasions. I appreciate that you take the time to do this. But because you take the time to do this doesn't mean that everybody that listens is actually going to get it. The ones that really need it and really are going to dig in are the ones that are going to keep moving forward and succeed in this. It can be discouraging sometimes, and I know a lot of people come and ask 1,001 questions, even myself. But you know, everybody has their time and place, and not everybody is going to understand what's going on. So that's pretty much all I had to say about that. So,
yeah, you know, it kind of fascinates me you know, I'm not going to name a name, but there's somebody on the YouTube channel War Castles. And I remember I listened to one of the videos one time, and I was just sitting there going, are you kidding me? Because I could go almost sentence by sentence and rebut everything this guy was saying. And I knew what he was saying. He was just repeating garbage that he heard from somebody else, and he never checked it out. But I mean, and it might not seem like much to people, but he says, for instance, that the United States borrowed like 1 million francs from France, you know, for the Revolutionary War. And I busted out laughing when I heard them say that, because France wasn't even using the franc at that time.
Right.
They didn't use the franc until a few years later.
Right.
And it's like, so if somebody is going to be, you know, off on history with something like that, that's easily found and researched, then what other things are they feeding you that could possibly just be total garbage?
So here's a question to you. What's YouTube? And what's the purpose of YouTube? So YouTube can be used for that information, but at the same time, you got to understand there are a lot of egos on YouTube, and all they're concerned with is views and money. And so even if they don't do the research themselves to go deeper into what's going on, everything to them is all about views and money. They don't care about what the truth is. Sometimes they don't dig deeper. So the ones who are tuned will look at it like you have and you know instantly this is BS, right? And you know, so unfortunately, a lot of people are going to suck it in and run with it. But at the same time, that's a good thing, because the ones that do suck it in and run with it, when they get smacked in the face with what's really the truth, then they'll go down another path and say, well, I can't listen to this guy, or I have to do more research myself, take things with a grain of salt. So some things are necessary, even though, you know, we look at it that way. You know, we might get upset about what they're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. At the same time, you know, I also hear a lot of people that slam YouTube quite a bit, and I'll hear statements like, oh, where'd you get that from, a YouTube video or whatever? Let me tell you something. There is some excellent information you can find there. People, I guess, believe that you should read an author's book instead of listening to that author do a lecture on YouTube. I guess his book has more legitimacy than his YouTube lecture does, you know, at a college or something like that. So I find that kind of curious. But at the same time, we're also seeing kind of a telltale sign of the mental digression, maybe, of people today, because if you look at numbers, the age group for YouTube is slowly rising, and the reason why it's going up is because the younger people that were participating with YouTube, they're leaving YouTube and they're going to TikTok. They would rather have the entertainment of a 30-second or 1 minute or 3-minute video, you know, of something funny or whatever the case may be, than, you know, take advantage of sitting and listening to an author, you know, do an interview or give a lecture or something like that. And I find that kind of sad. But that's just my viewpoint on it. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same thing with Facebook. Facebook was the same way when it first came out. The youth was involved, and then obviously, you know, more mature people get on there and started using it more. So they left that and went to YouTube, and now they're going, like you say, TikTok. So that's just a progression. And the other thing too is, you got to remember, we're living in a world where, like right now, we're on TalkShoe. Everything's everything's computerized. There's no longer, I remember when we used to have to place phone calls and you only had a certain amount of lines. If you didn't, when you called to get into a show, if you didn't call in at an appropriate time, you got the busy signal, right?
Yep.
So things have changed, they evolved, you know, and, you know, unfortunately for us, the ones that's been born, you know, I was born in the 60s, so late 60s. So I've seen 60s, 70s, or at least 70s, 80s. I remember all of that. And this, what we're facing now, is something that's completely different than what we're used to. But our the next generation behind us, or two generations behind us, that's all they know. They don't know anything about CMP or picking up the phone and having a turn dial. None of that stuff to them is, they don't have any clue of that. So, we could try to give it to them, but it's a battle. It's going to always be a battle, because what we know, the knowledge that we know, and what they learn in school, or what they see on YouTube, or what they see on TV, or whatever, is completely different than what we learn. So it's going to be a battle for us all the time.
Yeah, it's a battle for us, and especially like with the youth that you mentioned, you know, there's so many things that they're going to grab onto and hold as being an extreme fact that they shouldn't. And unfortunately, some of the adults are even falling for it today. But, when they hold on to some of these falsehoods as fact, that's what they're going to be moving forward with in their life. And that's something they're going to be using as kind of a measuring rod in their life for various things. I see 903 was unmuted here. I don't know if they wanted to chime in with something. Area code 903. Maybe not.
Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, bro? I haven't talked in a minute, Joe. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I wasn't really going to chime in with anything. I was just listening to the wonderful talks you guys were having. But since you brought me into this, I guess, I think the idea of people not looking into things and taking, I don't know, however long it takes to look up the things they interpret in the world through the media or whatever else is a very big issue. And I just posted to your group not long ago the Ken Berry, the Proper Human Diet talk he had from the Survival Podcast. I'm reading it right now. He's talking about how wheat, amongst other things, negatively affects the human body.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's interesting. People being moved to take different diets. I'm not going to mention my name, but being moved to take different diets and things. And what I kind of find curious, like with the wheat and people trying to get away from that type of a diet, is that there's countries where certain spraying, for instance, is not allowed, and the people there don't have an intestinal problem with the wheat like they do in other countries. So I kind of wonder sometimes what the problem might be.
Well, I can agree with you, but the majority of wheat grown here in America, or that's processed here for American stores, is a hybrid of wheat, and it's from what I'm understanding and reading, and I haven't figured it all out, but it's a hybrid of wheat, and it causes issues with the human body, as the way he explained it. And he offered a couple books to read if you're interested in. So, his actual book, not the talk.
Yeah, I did check out his talk, and I thought it was very good. And that's one of the things that people, I think, need to tune their ear to when they listen to different things like that. And like you said, it's a certain type of wheat because it's a hybrid that's being used. It's not the real organic stuff 100 years ago necessarily that Grandma and Grandpa were consuming. And I'm sorry.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Anything that man seems to put his hand into, he corrupts it. Why not just let the creator's creation be? I don't think we could do a better job than him, so we shouldn't be going in there and trying to tweak it, unless there is nefarious reasons, for an end result regarding that. All right.
Well, I agree, and It's how it goes. I'm gonna step out. You guys do your thing.
I see Elle is here. Haya's here. If the ladies want to chime in with anything, it's always nice to hear from you. Sorry, I've got everybody muted to eliminate the background noise, so I'll open it back up again. Like I said, if you have any background noise, anything going on, we can hear it. Hey, what's going on?
As I was chewing on a little pretzel, and that guy was talking about wheat. But yeah, I think that when they're mixing the seed, like GMO, genetically modified organisms, with Monsanto, then yeah, of course it's going to cause inflammation in the gut and all that. But I just made something with cabbage. It was interesting. I cut up a cabbage and put water in it and just sprinkled a little salt and then covered it for a few days in my refrigerator. And you can add things like raisins or, what is it called, carrots. And that's supposed to, it's like a kimchi type of a thing. It kind of helps put the good bacteria back into your system.
Yeah,
So
I
Lori
love
knows about that.
cabbage. I love cabbage. I'm not a big kimchi fan, but yeah, I do like cabbage. I've gotten to like it more as I got a little bit older, maybe not as much when I was young. But it's also excellent for a detox. Cabbage is awesome for detox. I remember I was on probation for a short period of time a few years ago, and I had the time like cut more than half off the probation, got rid of it, which was awesome. But while I was on, they have to know because they do random pee tests. And so if you are on any kind of prescribed medications, you got to let them know. So, of course, at the time I was, and I brought them in, the prescription and stuff for the painkiller I was on. And they looked at it. And then when they went and saw that my urinalysis tests were coming back negative for everything, they started getting ticked off at me. Probation officer started getting mad because he's like, hey, if you're taking these painkillers, then they should be showing up in your system. And it's not showing up in your system, so we have to assume you're selling them. And I'm like, no, not at all. I said, I just have a pretty strong detox diet.
That's great. What about asparagus? Would that do something with the, the urine sample? Other than
It probably would. Oh, yeah, other than make it smell bad? Yeah. No, I don't know if it would or not. But, but cabbage is a very inexpensive, easily accessible, vegetable for people to add to their diet. I think it's an important one to use.
Yeah, it's tasty.
I see Elle's got her hand up, but I don't think you've got a mic. Do you have a mic, Elle?
Unmute her.
Everybody's unmuted.
Oh, okay.
Yep. The only people are muted are those that have muted themselves out. Yep. She was here, but it was not showing that she had a mic. So she might have been
Maybe
in
she's in the chat. Maybe she's saying.
She might have been in view only mode.
Chatting.
Let me see if there's anything. Yeah. She's saying a few things about grains, the phytic acid. Ooh, she's got a privacy question. Okay, I might know what her privacy question is in relationship to. Because I mentioned yesterday something about starting a program, a private, anonymous lifestyle program.
Oh, help, I saw that.
Yeah, and this is something that's not going to get rolling anytime real quick. I mean, definitely within the next year. But there's a lot that's going to have to go into it. Everything's pretty much assembled. But people are going to need to realize that this is something that each of the little steps, they're going to have to actively participate in order to position their life that way and to protect themselves and protect their children as well. So I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, I guess
Good.
this has just been a good, nice little short chat this evening, and I'll get back together again with everybody next Sunday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. Thanks for being here. Love you all, and hey, keep researching, but keep your eyes open. Don't look at different things or hear different things and put your hands over your ears going, la, 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 la. No, don't do that. You got to remember, like I've always said, we have to know who we really are, where we're really from, and where we're really at, because we've been deceived on all three levels.